More on the historic vote on marriage equality in New York and where the debate stands across the country. I'm joined by Karen Finney, MSNBC political analyst and former DNC communications director from D.C. Also here is Mary Walter, a conservative radio host in studio with me. Good morning, girls. Good to see you both.
Good morning.
Karen, you heard Chris Christie there, who's still adamant about opposing it in New Jersey, that state. Do you believe the landscape has changed after New York, and has there been a significant step towards potentially nationalizing marriage equality?
You know, the landscape has changed dramatically, not just after New York, but I would say over the course of like the last 10 years. If you look at the Gallup polls, what it shows is people are increasingly coming to the, I think, right belief that, you know, in a country that talks about, you know, individual liberties and freedoms, everybody should have the right to be married. And in particular, and this is where I think you're seeing a real bipartisan, this becoming more bipartisan issue as we saw in New York, the millennial generation, by a pretty dramatic majority, they really don't care about same-sex marriage, and they don't view it in the same harsh terms that perhaps like their parents or grandparents do. So times are changing and the politics are changing because this is for voters, both Republicans and Democrats, they see this as a civil rights issue.
Okay. Mary, as we know, this bill passed hinged on Republicans who say their views changed. Take a listen to this.
The issue of same-sex marriage was never really a strong topic of discussion among family and friends. I simply opposed it in the Catholic sense of my upbringing. A man can be wiser today than yesterday. Who am I to say that someone does not have the same rights that I have with my wife, who I love, or they have the 1,300 plus rights that I share with her?
Mary, the fact that Republicans crossed over to join Democrats, is that a sign that views on this are changing in our society as a whole?
I think it is. I really do. And I think that Karen made a really good point that you have the millennials coming up, and to them, this is no big deal. So, and there's a lot of people in their 30s who have a lot of gay friends who are publicly out, and they look at this and they say, why shouldn't they have the same rights that I do? So it's not a surprise to me that it passed, and it's not a surprise that some of the Republicans are crossing over now.
It's interesting, Karen, because the president has supported civil unions for gay couples, has not endorsed marriage specifically, as duly noted by that Upper East Side here in Manhattan fundraiser that he had earlier this week with the LGBT community. A lot of people came away from that saying, you know, he's saying a lot of what he said back in 2008 and not stepping up to the plate with regard to marriage.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, the president has said that his thoughts are evolving on this, and he has taken some important steps in terms of don't ask, don't tell, and not defending the Defense of Marriage Act. And so I think myself and others, we really hope he gets there. You know, Alex, I see this personally as a mixed race person. There was a time in this country where marriage was defined as only between a white man and a white woman. So, you know, times change. I hope our president continues to change with the times and actually becomes more of a champion, because Cuomo's engagement on this issue really is part of what made the difference.
Yeah. You know, Mary, I'm curious with your listeners there at your talk show. I know you're a conservative host there. How are they weighing in on this?
You know, it's interesting because it's very mixed. And I think, you know, 5 years ago, you heard a lot more people who really took a hard stand about this, and their views are rooted in religion. With the change in the economy, though, I hear a lot more people saying, you know what, I'm more concerned about whether I can keep a roof over my head, if I can feed my kids, and I'm not as concerned now about who the guy down the street is going to marry. That's really not of importance to me now. So I think you have so many economic issues now coming to the forefront. And honestly, I think Republicans, if they're smart, aren't going to make their last stand on gay marriage. They're going to push the agenda of the economy, because that's really what's foremost in people's minds now. So I really heard that change in the last couple of years, and now it's reflected in the New York vote.
I don't know, Karen. I'm thinking we're talking with a moderate radio show host here. What do you think? All right.
You know, that's how times change, actually. I mean, that's a real sign of the times.
No, absolutely. All right, Karen Finney and Mary Walter. Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. It is the fastest-selling aircraft in history. Why so many airlines want this. New this morning, an Iowa poll that shows a close race for one of the first primary states. Mitt Romney and Michelle Bachmann finished just a single percentage point from each other, 23% and 22% respectively. The rest of the pack trailing in the distance. Joining me now is Karen Finney, an MSNBC political analyst and former DNC communications director, as well as Mary Walter here in studio, a conservative radio host. Ladies, welcome back.
Hi.
Mary, I'll begin with you. Could Bachmann be a real contender in this race?
You know, Bachmann is the darling of the Tea Party, and I think a lot of people have kind of written the Tea Party off as a has-been, a flash-in-the-pan kind of thing, but I don't think we should underestimate the Tea Party. I think that base is still really fired up, and they are really 100% behind her. They love her, so I think she can give him a run for his money.
Okay, Karen, let's play a clip right now of Bachmann speaking on Fox News Sunday just a short time ago. Here it is.
Well, not President Romney, Governor Romney has had a history of varying his position on this issue. I think clearly we need a candidate who is pro-life. That's reflective of our party.
Okay. Now, first off, she almost called him President Romney. What's going on there? But also in terms of the attack on Romney's abortion record, do you think voters will respond to these social issues this year?
They might, because remember, we're talking about this in the context of a primary, and sort of the kiss of death for a Republican primary presidential candidate is moderate. And so part of what I think Bachmann is trying to do is to undermine him as a flip-flopper, but also because this is a really core issue. It's interesting, Huntsman, who has been called a moderate, this is one of the issues where he is trying to also kind of put forward his conservative bona fides, if you will. My guess is on the misspeaking, you know, she's been very careful and very scripted since she hired Ed Rollins and a couple other folks. So my guess is that was just a little bit of a misstep because she was, you know, clearly trying to stay on her talking points.
Yeah. Now, Mary, Tim Pawlenty, let's get to him because he's made certainly an aggressive push in the Hawkeye state. Yes, yet he pulled rather low with just 6%. He's against the ethanol subsidies. That's a big issue in Iowa. How much do you think this is in response to that, and how much might it say about his campaign in general?
Yeah, well, you know, obviously I wasn't polled, but I would think that if you are an Iowan and you rely on corn and you rely on the ethanol subsidies, you know, you're struggling already. So someone coming in and saying, well, guess what, we're going to cut a little bit more, probably isn't super popular. But I think T-Paw has a little bit of an imaging problem, and I think until he works that out, I think his campaign's going to be very anemic until he figures out how to really package himself, and I think that's a big problem for him right now.
Karen, who do you think is the best Republican candidate right now to face President Obama?
Oh, well, the best from my perspective.
Yeah, no, actually, no, don't answer it as a Democrat, thanks very much, because I want a legitimate answer here. All right, yeah. But, you know.
Look, I think the person who, frankly, would, I think, pose the greatest challenge thus far is John Huntsman. I think he's going to have a challenge getting through the primary. My guess is that on the Republican side, you know, 50% of Republican primary voters say that electability is what they really care about. So that's actually benefiting Mitt Romney. So, you know, clearly he is still the guy to watch at this point.
Okay, it's only fair that I ask Mary the same question. How about you? Are you going to give a different answer?
No, actually, boy, Karen and I agree again. I think Huntsman is really interesting, and I think right now he doesn't have a lot of buzz around him, but I think she's right. You know, Romney he's pretty, he's good looking, he's got the package, so he does have that electability, which Huntsman right now doesn't have. He's got to get his message out, and he really has to get out there in front of the people, but I think he brings a lot to the table, and he's going to be very interesting to watch, so I think she's right.
Okay, ladies, once again agreeing. How very civilized of you. Karen Finney and Mary
Sunday.
Walter. Civil Sunday, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
In Puerto Rico,